Earlier we were learning out on Osmos.com the origins of idolatry from the book of the Rambam called Mishnah Torah. You could find on Osmos.com. Then navigate to the Oral Torah, Mishnah Torah under AI books, and yeah, basically, and this is where we are in the middle of it. So yeah, we said earlier that basically, what is idolatry? Worshipping of other gods. Originally, everyone knew that there was one God because the Creator made the world with Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, etc. But then a few hundred years after, basically, or slightly after the times of Enosh, then there was people did not originally want to worship other gods. They wanted to try to glorify the singular Creator, and they made a mistake because they realized that the stars in the heavens have like some kind of spiritual influence on the world that the Creator made, and they also knew that the stars are alive and constantly worship the Creator, and they thought that by them worshiping the stars, then that would be like glorifying the Creator, just like a king, just like by praising like the servants of a king, one like glorifies the king kind of thing, and they thought that the Creator wanted them to honor the stars. For like having the spiritual influence on them, just like a king who kind of honors his servants. But the mistake was that they didn't realize that there was actually the stars, even though they're alive and there's like spiritual influence that comes from them, but they don't have any free choice in the matter at all. So they shouldn't be, they're not like servants. They're just like, Hashem is just using them like an axe in the hands of an axe cutter, even though they're alive and conscious, etc. But that's their mistake, that they realize that they don't have any free choice at all. But then, so that's how it started. It says, everyone knew that Hashem is the one God, but the mistake was, their error and their folly was, that they imagined that this vanity is your will. They imagined that worshiping the stars and building temples for the stars was the will of the Creator. They thought that that was what the Creator wanted them to do, even though He never said to do it. But they thought, oh, it's a good way to glorify the King to do it. But no. And after some time passed, that's how it originally started, the times of Enosh. And they were wise people who like knew the Creator, etc. That's how it started. But then after time passed, there arose among the children of men false prophets, people just made stuff up, and they pretended that the Osmos commanded them and told them, because they were false prophets, so they were lying. But they said that the Creator told them, serve such and such a star or all the stars. They thought they were just like making stuff up. They said, oh yeah, the Creator told me to tell you to worship the stars and offer sacrifices to it and make libations to it. Meaning earlier they weren't actually worshiping the stars themselves. They were just like giving thanks, glorifying the stars kind of thing in order to glorify the Creator, because they thought that the stars had free choice, but they really didn't. But then after these false prophets came along, they said, oh, they thought the Creator commanded them to make a bunch of temples and to offer libations to the stars, and build a temple for the stars and make images so that all people may prostrate themselves to the stars. Resort, the false prophets later came along and said, and the women and the children and all the rest of the people of the land, the false prophets said that, yeah, everyone should worship the stars. And they were pretending that the Creator spoke to them, and I guess people just believed them at the time. And He would reveal to them an image that He had devised from His heart and say, yeah, He would just like make up some kind of image of thing and say, oh, this is the image of the such and such a star that was revealed to him in his prophecy. He said, yeah, like the star actually has like some kind of form that he would just like make up and say, oh yeah, this star just talked to me in a prophecy and told me to worship it. So originally they were saying that the Creator gave them a prophecy to worship the stars. Then they started lying even more and pretended that the stars themselves were talking to them and telling them to worship them. And they began in this way to make images in temples and under trees and on mountaintops and on hills. They're making all kinds of temples worshiping the stars because the false prophets pretended that the stars were talking to them, to telling them to worship the stars. And they would gather and prostrate themselves to them and say to all the people that this is the image, that some false prophets would make, like some image, they would pretend it was like an image of a star. They'd say, oh, this image is beneficial and or harmful and worthy of service and fear of it. Meaning at first they were saying, they made the images just to say, oh, this image of a star that he just made up, oh, this star told me to worship the stars. But they wouldn't actually worship the images. They started by just worshiping the stars, and the images were just there, so they kind of knew what star they were that they were worshiping. But then after that happened, then the days went on later, and then they started worshiping the images themselves. And their priests would say to them that through this service of like bowing down to the images of the stars, you will multiply and prosper. This is all the false prophets are saying, and do thus and thus, and do not do thus and thus. So this is like as the days went on, they kind of evolved. The first, again, the original mistake was not to worship the stars themselves or images. It was to worship the Creator, and they thought that the stars. The original mistake was to think that the stars have any kind of free choice at all. And because they thought that the stars were like, because the truth is that the stars are alive and conscious and worship the Creator, and the energy that comes into this world happens through all the stars. But the truth is that the stars don't actually have any free choice to give over that energy or not. Just the Creator uses them. So that they didn't realize, that was the original mistake that they didn't realize. But once they made that first mistake, then that first mistake turned into glorifying the stars, not to worship the stars, but to try to glorify the Creator. And then when later people grew up and they saw people worshiping, they saw people like bow down to stars and stuff, they thought that the stars themselves should be worshipped. So then that's where the false prophets came from. And then the images came along, not because they were bowing down to statues originally, but because the false prophets just made up some image and they were pretending that the star looks like some person or like an animal or something. They're saying, oh yeah, this star looks like this, and this star told me to worship, told me to tell you to worship it. So originally they weren't even worshiping their images. They were just had the images so that they could try to think of what the star looked like when they were worshiping the stars. But then they started worshiping the images themselves. So they thought the images and the statues themselves would do good and bad. And other liars began to stand up and say that the star itself or the sphere or the angel spoke with them and said to them, serve me in this way and that. Yeah, earlier they were saying like the Creator told them in the prophecy, or they were saying like the star told them, and now we're saying, oh, maybe not only the star, but also the spheres that the stars are in, or an angel told them certain things to serve him, to serve it itself in such a way. Like they were just liars. They just made stuff up. They say, yeah, the stars, the angels told me to tell you to worship it in a certain way, and revealed to them the way of its service, and do thus and do not do thus. So like this false prophet said like, oh yeah, this angel told me to tell you to like do a bunch of weird stuff, and that would make it, and that would and then they pretended that the angel would like do good or bad to them. And this matter spread throughout the whole world, to serve the images in various services, different from one another, and to offer sacrifices to them, and to prostrate themselves to the images, because they thought that the images would like corresponding to the angels and the stars, they thought that they would be able to give them good or bad. And when time passed, the glorious and awesome name of the Creator was forgotten from the mouths of all the universe and from their knowledge, and they did not recognize him. Originally they were just worshiping the stars, not to worship the stars themselves, but they thought, oh, the servants of a king are like befitting to give thanks to, just like the king himself, in order to glorify the king. So they were trying to glorify the singular Creator. But after all these other liars and false prophets came along and said that the stars started talking to them and the angels told them to make images and start doing stuff, then after generations, they just forgot about the actual Creator. And all the people of the earth, the women and the children, were found to know only the image of wood and stone and the temples of stones. Yeah, they grew up like they didn't know about the early generations. So they just grew up, and as a kids they saw like these big temples and stones, and people bowing down to them, and then just made up a bunch of rumors and stuff, which they were taught from their youth to prostrate themselves to, and to serve, and to swear in his name. But they didn't know the whole history of how it happened. They just said like, oh, this is what we do just because we're doing it. And then they just started making stuff up. And the wise men who were among them, such as their priests and the like, they had like idolatrous priests, imagined that there was no Elohim except the stars and the spheres for which these images were made and in their likeness. Yeah, so originally everyone knew there was one Creator, but then after people started trying to praise the Creator through praising the stars, then after a few generations, people actually forgot about the Creator, and they thought that the only gods were just like stars, which is, I mean, not only the only, are they not the only, but they're not even gods at all, because they don't have any free choice of any kind. So there was like a few different levels of mistakes that happened. But the rock of the worlds, which is just the word for the Creator, there was no one who knew him. And only, not no one, but very few people knew him. And only individuals in the world knew him. Only a few people knew him, such as Enoch, Methuselah, Noah, Shem, and Aver. Shem and Aver were, Shem was Noah's son, and then Aver was his grandson. I mean, there was also other kids of Noah as well, but he doesn't mention them. And I mean, there's also like a few other people, but they kind of like knew about the Creator, but they didn't like really know. So those are the people who like really, really knew. even though there was some of the other people that kind of had some idea. Like, I mean, Noah also had other sons who must have known about it. I mean, they were in the flood, so they knew about it because the Creator told them to go in the ark. But they didn't like. There's a difference between like knowing and then like really knowing. So like those people, the righteous people, like really knew about the Creator, and maybe like a few others, basically, but almost no one else in the world knew about the Creator. And in this way, meaning as the idolaters started, this way the world continued to roll, just kept on going, like evolving the generations until the pillar of the world was born. The pillar of the world, and he is Abraham, our father. That's the first Jew, Abraham, who is called the pillar of the world. So the Rambam refers to him just like as if he's like supporting the entire world in his merit, because like there was almost no one else who knew about the Creator. When this strong man matured, Abraham, he began to ponder in his mind, and he was still young at the time. He matured, but as he was young maturing. And he began to think day and night and was amazed how it was possible for this sphere to always move, referring to, as we mentioned, the Rambam mentioned earlier that in the Torah, there's the earth is the center of the universe, and then there has everything else rotates around it in a series of different spheres, like an onion with different layers. Each of the spheres rotates around the earth. And the first sphere is where the moon is in it. That's why the moon rotates around that. Then the next sphere is like has Venus, which rotates around that sphere. So it's basically, Abraham was like looking at the sky, like how is it possible for the sphere to always move and not have a leader who would move it, who would turn it? For it is impossible for it to turn itself. It's impossible for laws of nature just to cause themselves to happen. It doesn't make any sense. And he had no teacher and no one to inform him, but he was immersed in the darkness of the foolish idolaters, because he grew up amongst idolaters. And his father and mother and all the people were idolaters, and he served idolatry with them. And his heart was wandering and wandering in a good way, until he attained the path of truth and understood the line of justice from his correct understanding. His translation is kind of so-so, but basically idea. And he knew that there is only one Elohim, only one God. And he is the leader of the sphere that turns around the earth and everything. And he created everything. And there is no Elohim, no other God in all existence besides for him. And he knew that the whole rest of the world was mistaken. So basically, Abraham just discovered it on his own. And then later, songs about after he discovered it on his own, then the Creator actually like proved it to him through various things like prophecies and miracles. But the original beginning was Abraham just realizing it through his own, without any teacher or anything. And the thing that caused them to err was that they served the stars and the images until the truth was lost from their minds. And at the age of 40, Abraham recognized the Creator. Hikir in Hebrew is the verb. Even though he said earlier that he was like exploring in his mind the Creator, but there's different levels of recognition of the Creator. Some places say he was 3, other places say he was like here 40 and then 48. So basically there's different levels, there's different stages of recognizing the Creator, but 40 was considered like the main recognition, not only just like theorizing about the Creator, but like actually recognizing him. And since he recognized and actually intellectually knew the Creator, not just belief, but like knew for sure, then he began to give answers to the children of Ur, which is the place that he grew up in, of the Chaldeans, and to argue with them. He had like a debate club, basically, with them, and to say that this is not the path of truth that you are following. And he shattered the idols. He basically, this whole story, there's an idol store. He broke the idols down, took a hammer, and just shattered them, and began to inform the people that it is not right to serve anyone except for the Elohim of the world. Only to serve the one God, not to serve all these other statues and stuff. And to him it is proper to prostrate oneself and to offer sacrifices and libations only to the Creator, so that all the creatures to come may recognize him. Yeah, basically Abraham was like doing all this stuff so that other people so people would come to recognize the Creator. And Abraham was saying that it is proper to destroy and shatter all of the images so that the people will not err in them, like those who imagine that there's no Elohim except for these. Basically just people think, oh, the only God is like the statue that they made. But no, so it's good to shatter them, to kind of break that perception they have. When he prevailed over them with his proofs, he was a good debater. No one could argue with him. The king the idolatrous king at the time sought to kill him, but then a miracle was performed for him, and he went to another place called Haran. And basically, Rambam doesn't say what the miracle was, but in the Talmud it says that basically the king tried to throw him in a fiery furnace, and in front of a lot of people. And then the big miracle happened, and Abraham survived miraculously for 3 entire days in the furnace without being burned at all. And then he escaped. And he began to stand and call with a loud voice and to all the world, and to inform them that there is one Elohim, only one Elohim for the entire world, only one God for the entire world, and only to him it is proper to serve, not any idols or statues. And he would walk and call and gather the people from city to city and from kingdom to kingdom until he reached the land of Canaan, the land of Yisrael. This is where the land of Israel comes from originally, because the Creator told him to go there. When Abraham was 75, he was living in Haran, but then the Creator said, "Oh no, go from your birthplace and your land where you grew up with to the land that I will show you." And Abraham didn't even know which land it was. He was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna start walking." Basically, Creator said, just like, leave everything behind, leave your entire life that you've built here, just leave and just start going. Then the Creator led him to the land of Israel, and that's the original source of how the Jewish people got the land of Israel. From that, basically, Rambam doesn't go into it there, doesn't go into it much right now, but that's basically where the story is. Yeah, so Shnamar, like it says, Vayikra Sham b'Shem Hashem Mikel Olam, and he shall call there. He called in the past tense, but it could also mean in the future tense. He called there in the name of Havaya Elohim, the Eternal One. AI translation. This is just basically a verse saying that Abraham started calling out with a great loud voice to the Creator and worshiping him. And when the people gathered to Abraham and asked him about his words that Abraham was shouting out, he was trying to draw attention to himself. He was shouting to call the Creator. People would say, "Hey, what are you shouting about?" He would inform each and every one according to his understanding until he would return him to the path of truth, until finally thousands and tens of thousands gathered to Abraham, and they are the people of Abraham's household. I mean, originally Abraham is an ancestor of the Jewish people. But there was also a bunch of other thousands of people that worshipped monotheism before the Jewish people came along. But the commentaries say that those other people they didn't really last as a eternal people of monotheism. Only the Jewish people stayed with that track. But at least during the time Abraham was alive, there was tens of thousands of people that were worshiping monotheism with him, even though they didn't form their own nation later. Only the Jewish people, which came later, but still, at Abraham's time, he influenced tens of thousands of people to worship monotheism, to only the one Creator. And he implanted this great principle in their hearts and composed books. Abraham wrote a lot of books and informed Isaac, his son. And Isaac sat teaching and warning people against idolatry. So once Isaac grew up, Isaac was also teaching other people. And then finally, when Isaac grew up, Isaac had his own son named Jacob, Yaakov. Isaac informed Jacob, and from him to teach. I'm not sure that. I don't know the translation. But basically, Isaac taught Jacob to teach as well. Oh, to teach in the name of Isaac as well, meaning monotheism. And he sat teaching. Jacob was also teaching people and upholding all those who joined him. So there's a lot of people who are teaching through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the fathers of the Jewish people. And Jacob, our father, taught all of his sons and distinguished Levi. Out of all the sons, the son Levi of Jacob's son, and made him a head and seated him in a yeshiva to teach the way of the Atzmus and to keep the commandments of Abraham. So basically, the tribe of Levi was the tribe of the teachers that Jacob appointed to teach people. And he commanded his sons, all his sons, not to interrupt from the sons of Levi and appoint his successor. Wait, what does it say? Okay. Make sure that at least from the tribe of Levi, there should always be at least one person who would be teaching them, basically, in order that the teachings will not be forgotten. So they always had at least one teacher from the tribe of Levi, even though the other tribes were kind of slaves in Egypt. But the Levi was never a slave. They always had teachers who would instruct them in the ways of the Creator, which is from the teachings of Abraham. And the matter continued to grow among the children of Yaakov, of Jacob, and those who joined them. And a nation that knows Havaya which is the word for the Creator, was made in the world. That's how the Jewish people started, and people who convert to Judaism as well also was considered part of that. So until time passed for Israel in Egypt, and they returned to learning their deeds and serving stars like them. Yeah, so once the Jews went to Egypt, then they also started learning from Egyptian culture. Some of the Jews started worshiping idols again, except for the tribe of Levi, who stood in the commandment of the forefathers. So since Yaakov said never to have someone, a teacher from Levi, not be there, meaning to always make sure that there was at least one teacher. So the entire tribe of Levi never worshipped idols. They were always learning Torah. And the tribe of Levi never served idolatry. And the principle that Abraham planted was almost uprooted, except for everyone except for the tribe of Levi. And the children of Jacob returned to the world's error and their straying when they were slaves in Egypt. And out of the Osmos's love for us and his keeping of the oath to Abraham our father, Moses our teacher, then Moses the teacher, the rabbi of all the prophets, acted and okay, this makes it. Okay. The translation doesn't really make sense. After the Osmos's love for us and keeping the oath of Abraham our father, then he made Moses into our teacher of all the prophets. Not acted. It means in Hebrew the word acted and made is the same. The Creator made Moses our teacher, the rabbi of all the prophets, and sent him. When Moses our teacher prophesied, and Osmos chose. Once Moses prophesied that Hashem chose Israel to be an inheritance. I don't know why it broke up. It has a thing at the top there. I made it break it up every time there's punctuation. So since there's a little punctuation at the top here, it split the entire paragraph. So once Moses started to prophesy, then Hashem chose Yisroel as an inheritance. And he crowned them with commandments and informed them the way of his service. Meaning he told them exactly how to serve their one Creator so they wouldn't be mistaken in idolatry. And what will be the judgment of idolatry and all those who err after it. And this is where the commandments of not serving false gods come from. Not that they're actual gods, but saying because people thought they were false gods based on all those mistakes in generations. So that's why the Creator had to instruct them to not serve the false gods. Not that he's like jealous or anything. He's just trying to get the Jewish people on the proper path so that they could only find the truth and not go after the mistakes that people did in the earlier generations. So what is the Iker Tzivai B'avodas Kochavim? The essence of the prohibition against idol worship is, what does it mean to not worship idols? What exactly does it mean? Exactly. Shelo lavod echad mikol habruim is not to worship any of God's creations, not to worship any creation. Lo malach, not an angel, neither an angel, nor a celestial body, nor a star, nor any of the four elements, nor any created being derived from any of those things. And even if the worshiper knows that the Atzmus is the true God, and he worships the created being only in the matter that Adam, Enosh. Okay, this translation is really bad. I have to fix it. Meaning earlier we said that the times of Enosh, who was after Adam, they worshipped the stars, not because they believed the stars, they actually wanted to worship the stars. They were trying to worship the stars in order to glorify the Creator. But even doing that, even worshiping the stars in order to glorify the Creator is forbidden. So we should not do it. Even doing it in the way that Enosh and the people originally do it, this is considered idol worship and is bad. And this matter is what the Torah warned against, saying, lest you lift up your eyes to the heaven and see the sun, the stars, etc., which Havaya, your God, has apportioned to all of the nations, meaning lest your heart be swayed and you see that these are the rulers of the world. You might pretend that the stars are like the rulers of the world, but really Hashem is the one who appointed them to all the world to exist, to live and exist, such that they would not be destroyed. Okay, this translation is a little complicated, but basically, he's saying the Creator appointed them to like influence different parts of the world. Not that the stars themselves have influence, but the Creator chose to like guide the rest of the world through their influence, and because the stars have a certain nature where the stars never die, basically, and they never get destroyed. There's like other things get destroyed. So the point is, that's just like explaining the verse, and it says, and you say that it is proper to prostrate oneself to them and serve them. Don't say that by lifting up your eyes to them. And in this matter, he commanded and said, beware lest your heart be enticed, as if to say, meaning that you do not err in the thoughts of your heart to worship the stars, so that they might be a mediator between you and the Creator. People will think, oh, by worshiping the stars, then they could like get more energy from the Creator, maybe. But no, that's a mistake that people shouldn't do. And many books were written by idol worshippers about their worship. How is the essence of their worship, and what are its actions and judgments? Other idolaters wrote about it, but the Holy One, blessed be He, commanded us not to read in those books at all. So not even for like academic worship. We should not even think about reading other books that idolaters wrote, nor to ponder them, nor anything of their words. And even to look at the image of an idol is forbidden. It's like, oh, I'm not actually worshiping it, I'm just like looking at an idol. No, we should not. There's a prohibition not to even look at idols. Like it says, do not turn to idols. Not only not worship idols, but don't even turn to them. And in this matter, it is stated, lest you inquire about their gods, saying, how do they serve? How do people serve their other gods? That you do not ask about the way of their worship, how it is, even if you are not worshiping them, because this leads to turning after them and doing as they do. Like it says, and I will do likewise. Yeah, it says, it's at the end of the verse. The end of the same verse says, you should not like ask people, how are these gods worshipped, so that I should also worship them. No, don't say that, because by even just thinking about the idols and learning about them, that also influences people to learn them. So we should not even look at idols. Don't even think about it, not to read books about them. And all these prohibitions are in one matter. It's basically one idea. And that is that one does not turn after idol worship in any way. Not only not to worship idols, not even to turn after it. And whoever turns after it in a way that he performs an act, meaning thought is one thing, thought is also bad, but if anyone who actually does an action that furthers any kind of action that involves turning to an idol, then this person, in order to atone for the spiritual damage that's done by that action of turning to those idols, one has to be whipped, according to the Torah. The Torah talks about the punishment of being like flogged. Whipping is generally people used to get like 39 lashes. We don't do it anymore because we don't have the court that's able to do it. But it's basically saying, like, even though we don't do it, but we can